people. That's just bullshit, and he made it up. Nationalistic policy is not necessarily there to unite everybody.
Okay, you literally said, I'm writing these down. Hold on, I'm writing these down as you said them. You said united under love of country / nation. The wall was the most divisive thing. It even divided Republicans.
They can be, and policy on the national level can be divisive. Like
Andrew Wilson demolishes Destiny and his partner in a debate about nationalistic policies. Now, Destiny gives false examples and emotional reasons for nationalistic policies, and Andrew Wilson kills him with nothing but facts, usually as Andrew Wilson does. So yeah, basically Tuckman on the screen that you all see tries to say that the nationalistic policy should unite the country and the wall didn't. But Andrew Wilson counters that argument with the vaccine. So we have here a debate with Andrew Wilson and others and stuff, including Destiny. If you enjoy what's being shared in this video, go ahead, smash the like button, share the video far wide across social media. Let's go ahead and get right into it.
What happened? I mean, that was the reason why we need to have a government that promotes quote unquote American nationalism. And I know while you're apparently not talking about a monoculture. I mean, if you're talking about a government that promotes quote unquote nationalism, then presumably you're talking about a government that promotes certain policies designed to get more people behind a common set of experience and belief, which seems like the opposite thing you'd want to do if you'd want to preserve unity in a diverse continental sized country.
Why? Why is that contrary? That makes no sense.
Because under our framework, this goes back to Federalist number 10, where Hamilton said, look, democracy in a big republic can work because all of these different interests can keep each other in check. Everybody has the opportunity to put their policy into practice, to have the ability to sort of have a corner of this great country where they can be themselves, as far as possible under our constitutional framework. Well, I mean, but the idea of trying to squeeze everybody into a narrower box.
Way to cherry pick federalism. But the thing is, Bastiat, is look, we all live under one federal government.
Right.
Everybody does. There's no particularly good reason why you can't promote nationalism, or the federal government cannot promote nationalism and make a strong state. There's no good reason why they can't do that. There's no good reason why they shouldn't do that.
Yeah, I don't think either of us disagree.
What is nationalism and a strong state to you? Because I mean, the United States government is a pretty strong state.
How many times do you want this redefined?
I don't.
Okay, wait. First of all, the first definition was a little bit unclear, which is fine. But so more concretely, I think what we would ask is what's an example of a nationalistic policy?
A nationalistic policy at the federal government level. Maybe you could look at infrastructure might be a nationalistic policy. You could look at maybe different economic incentives via taxation, things like that could be nationalistic policies. There's
basically the entire Trump and Pat Buchanan America First agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, let me break this down for you all. So for those of you all who aren't familiar with this, a nationalistic policy actually refers to different strategies, different strategies from the government, including laws or actions that primarily actually aim to promote, protect, or advance the interests of one's own nation above others. Okay, so some examples will include the identity or the culture, or as some will call cultural identity, where you promote the culture, including language and the heritage of that nation at the expense of minority groups or immigrants. And then there's also the economic protections, as well as security and sovereignty, as well as control over immigration. All right, so basically it's that's what makes the country itself. Those are the policies that help to show everybody what the country is, how the country exists, and what it represents. All right, and basically Andrew Wilson's actually given this definition with several examples several times apparently, and they still, seems to me they still disagree with him.
Those were both attempts to unite the different factions of the republic under a banner of nationalism. It's the way you overcome all of the racial differences and religious differences. It's the reason you can have a country with freedom of religion, with multiple cultures, with multiple races, because you can unite them under love of country and love of your nation. It doesn't, like he said, those two aren't mutually exclusive.
So I don't think Thomas Jefferson said, we're all Republicans, we're all Federalists.
So I don't think either of us would disagree with either of that. But the weird thing, though, is that like everything you're giving me is like 100% not the Trump agenda and absolutely the Biden agenda. So when we look at, for instance, like infrastructure, that's what's working its way through Congress right now. There's a question of if any Republicans are going to be on board with that, the massive infrastructure. But when you talk about economic incentives, that's baked into the last coronavirus relief and potentially like the new infrastructure bill going forward. Like that's economic incentives that Biden has for working class families. When you talk about attempts to unite the republic, if you look at Biden's rhetoric, he's not a Republican or a Democratic president. He's the president of the entire United States. He's the president of every American. When you talk about a country with religious freedom, Trump is the one that's holding up the Bible and saying, this is my holy book. This is one of the best books ever written. I think it's my first favorite or second favorite behind my book or whatever, right?
And what's wrong with that?
It feels like everything you're giving me right now is like 100%
None of
Biden's
that has
rhetoric.
anything to do with anything. Who cares if Biden has what you consider portions of a nationalistic agenda? Good. He also has portions of things that are not a nationalistic agenda, like what you guys consider open border immigration.
Well, what part of Trump? What part of Trump
wants to move in?
What part of Trump was considered a nationalistic agenda? Was it the massive tax cuts for wealthy corporations?
How's this for a massive infrastructure project? The wall. That would have been a very highly nationalistic project. That's just one example among many.
You're a
level country here.
You're a real life.
Nothing of the sort. Go ahead.
Well, okay, I'm sorry. This is true for me. You're a real life person. You drive to work. Okay.
Yeah.
I've driven all over this country for a long time, and I'm sorry, but the idea that investment of our infrastructure, as somebody that's driven on roads in the Midwest that are fucking falling apart, as somebody that wants to move to Miami where buildings are fucking collapsing, as somebody that is like watching flooding happening like around the world and shit, as somebody that is watching like the dramatic change in climate across the Northwest where they don't have air conditioners, because how are you telling me that a wall is the type of infrastructure investment that people across the country are looking forward to?
Whether you agree that the wall was a good idea or a bad idea is irrelevant. I was giving you an example of something that would be nationalistic. So when we're talking
hold on. We're asking you for examples. You can't give me an example, and then when I push back on why your example is dog shit, say, well, that's not relevant. It absolutely is.
It seems to me that this dude not only disagree with Andrew, but it also seems that, basically he doesn't believe that the wall itself actually represents, nationalistic policy. I mean, he's just seeing it doesn't represent that because of the fact that not everybody agree with it or not everyone support it. But the fact of the matter is it comes from the nation. Okay. Just like how, a certain conflict over in far Eastern Europe and stuff is a nationalistic policy. Unfortunately, I disagree with it, but nevertheless, it's a nationalistic policy that's failing. Okay. And unfortunately, it seems like he doesn't want to go ahead and acknowledge the wall as it either.
That's relevant. You brought it up as an example.
Shit. What you're doing is saying, I don't agree with this example of nationalism, not saying that it's not an example of government nationalism.
Well,
you're talking about infrastructure. One president is going to unite disparate people, though, not just something that 50% of the population is down with.
No, nationalistic policy is going to unite the nation on a wide scale. That's just bullshit, and he made it up. Nationalistic policy is not necessarily there to unite everybody.
Okay, you literally said, I'm writing these down. Hold on, I'm writing these down as you said them. You said united under love of country/nation. The wall was the most divisive thing. It even divided Republicans.
They can be, and policy on the national level can be divisive, like the coronavirus. Right now, you pushing vaccines pretty hard. That's a pretty divisive policy, but most certainly it's a nationalistic policy, and there's a lot of nationalistic propaganda around it, isn't there?
Let me ask you, what makes a policy nationalistic? Because if we're talking about the wall, for example, the wall is divisive. The wall comes with great. Well, let me just explain why I'm skeptical of this. Maybe we can go to another policy. I don't know, but the wall is divisive. It comes at the expense of the taxpayer to the tune of several billions of dollars. The economic benefits are not there. It requires the use of eminent domain to take land from citizens that do not want to give it up. And when you're done with it, the wall is something that immigrants will still be able to pop and break through. So it doesn't seem to provide any benefit of any sort. What makes it nationalistic?
What would make the policy nationalistic, to answer your question, would be that the federal government and the body of the government of elected officials are pushing it specifically for the purposes of benefiting its own people. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to benefit all of the people, or that it won't even be a divisive policy, but that doesn't mean that it's not a nationalistic policy.
You literally named this is every single policy.
Yeah, this is governments I mean, I'm really curious about this. I don't know what governments do that is not in the interest of their governments. Like when you say an America First policy, when does the United States government implement policy without thinking this will benefit the United States in some way?
Well, I could tell you.
Right?
I could maybe clarify that for you. So when we're talking about nationalism, the things that Andrew and I don't like to see, the things that worry or concern us, because we have 5 children and we hope to have a lot of grandkids, and there's going to be a lot of Wilsons running around in the decades to come, we don't like to see things like transnational corporations, special interests, foreign nations coming in and having so much influence in government policy, in how things are done. And people who are fine with globalism and think that globalism is good, nationalism is some kind of tribal, racist, xenophobic thing. And globalism is the loving, accepting, nice thing. Have no problem with huge corporations coming in. You saw this again during coronavirus where, certain states would say, okay, we're going to lift this mask mandate. You don't have to have it anymore. And then all these giant mega corporations like Target or Home Depot or Walmart can say, well, we're going to still require it. We don't care about your state laws.
So that's definitely spot on from both Andrew Wilson and his wife, Mrs. Wilson, Rachel. But it's like basically these two left-wing, woke left activists, nut jobs and stuff on over here, they refuse to believe it because of the fact that they keep telling the narrative where, nationalistic policy has to be something where everybody has to be united and stuff has to be beneficial to everybody, which they actually are, instead of just like factual logical evidence where it's actually policy that's established by a U.S. president or U.S. governmental power. Okay. And that's something that Andrew Wilson is actually trying to show them, because frankly, they don't like the things that they disagree on and everything. They basically appeal to it in an emotional manner, including Destiny. And Andrew Wilson is actually sharing how these policies, even though not everybody agree with them, they're still nationalistic policies because they're done to be beneficial to the country, and they've actually said the example of the COOF and everything, well, the things done for that was part of a nationalistic policy and stuff. They disagree with it. They didn't like it. They saw that it was infringing on their rights, but at the same time, it still was a nationalistic policy. And that's what Andrew Wilson and his wife were basically saying. So let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Also, be sure to include any additional details or thoughts you may have on this particular topic. If you enjoy what was shared in this video, go ahead and smash the like button and share the video far wide across social media. And if you haven't done so already, you enjoyed all the content that I put out there, go ahead, subscribe to the channel, click the bell notification so that way you're notified of future uploads and updates. Till then, peace.